Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you solo tonight. Everybody's still sort of a little on that, vacation swing. So we're going to get you through some stuff. It's rumor time. I mean, you've been asking for them. They're starting to come in, so we want to talk about it. We want to talk about some things. I don't know how long the show will be. I say that, and then we usually end up going an hour. We'll see about today. Not a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Not a whole bunch to dig into as far as MLS side is concerned. Some crazy playoff games again. You got your Western Conference and your Eastern Conference, and New York City versus Philadelphia Union, and Bruce Arena got knocked out, and you've got your Portland and your RSL and all sorts of fun things. And I saw 538 has Portland and New York City, I think, 31% chances to win the Cup. So anyway, there's your whole MLS thing. But we have rumors. Somebody's selling their house. We're going to tell you who it is. We're going to tell you why it matters, why it doesn't matter. A bunch of stuff to talk about there. Sebastian Lletget's going to play a key role in the LA Galaxy's offseason, so going to tell you a little bit about that. Just some other names that are starting to pop up and some things that we can start connecting just a little bit. Just a little bit. So we'll see how we kind of rock and roll tonight. Hopefully it's a good one. Glad you could join us again. Sort of marching towards our wintry our wintry conclusion here to 2021. As a matter of fact, I made the schedule for the 2022, January 2022. It's up on the website, and you can see sort of how we're planning on doing, the shows coming up in 2022. So that's out already. We have our schedule up for December. Look there. There's going to be about a week and a half where we have no shows, sort of between lead up into Christmas and then into the other into past New Year's. And once you get past New Year's, then it's all everything going forward. So big shout out to Christian, by the way, gave us $10 super chat already before we even started the show. So thanks, Christian. Appreciate that. And Christian says, by the way, with a little question, if the Galaxy exercise their contract option with Dennis DeClosa and he then signs with Feyenoord, shouldn't the Galaxy receive a transfer fee? Yes, no, probably didn't happen if you're really looking at it. I mean, this wasn't the Galaxy playing hardball, and I don't think there was a real concerted effort to keep Dennis DeClosa. They exercise this option, and when you exercise the option, you do basically what you were supposed to do, right? So they did it. I'm not sure if they exercised it thinking that maybe they might get a transfer fee in some cases. I was not told there was one. And if you've noticed, it's been kind of a little radio silence from the team. And sort of that is because players aren't really in training or voluntarily coming in. There's lots of guys who are on vacation. Some guys are going on vacation. I actually went to the stadium. Funny enough, I was at the stadium on, was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. I can't remember. It feels like it might have been Wednesday, but no, I think it was Tuesday. I went to the stadium. The LA Galaxy were nice enough to send me some of the gazelles and address things and a whole bunch of stuff. Sort of led to it getting lost, and so I have them here, and let me just grab them here. Always great show, always great radio whenever you have the host duck out for a second. So if you hear any noises, stuff like that. So the Galaxy were nice enough to gift me a pair of the Friends and Family Gazelles. Somebody was asking if they even sold these, and I don't think they sold this particular version. This is the tech green and the yellow and sort of the orange version, the throwback version. And I don't think that they did sell these. So as far as I know, they were really limited. You could buy the ones that had signatures on them. And I think they're about $200, very limited amounts of those. I was actually watching those disappear in about 3 minutes. So those, but yeah, the Galaxy were nice enough to. I'll let you know, these are going into the quote unquote Galaxy Museum that is being sort of created through all the stuff that I've collected over the years. Jerseys, random things. I have a nice name tag from Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So a bunch of stuff that I've been collecting over we're going into 14 seasons now. 2022 is season 14 for Corner of the Galaxy. So glad everybody got it. Glad everybody's joining us for that, and so it's kind of fun. So anyway, I've gathered a whole bunch of stuff. Basically, it's a bunch of. I would say some of it's a bunch of junk, some of it's not a bunch of junk. Some of it's cool. I have some corks from the champagne bottles from the 2012 and 2014 MLS Cups. Just random stuff that I pick up sometimes that are left around. People realizing that that maybe my hands are good hands to have some stuff in for prosperity. So it was a whole bunch of stuff that sort of happened. But anyway, super thankful for this. I realize not a lot of people got a chance to get these, so it's not lost on me that this is a special thing. It'll go into the closet, and like I said, I don't think these will ever be worn. So it's just one of those things that sort of gets put into a place, and eventually, one of these days, the big picture is that I will have a podcast studio that has walls lined with all of this stuff. And all the things that I sort of had there. So yeah, that was about it. I know they're super limited edition. They're gorgeous. They're really, really pretty shoes. I saw the regular Gazelles as well. They're gorgeous. So anyway, I was there, ran into Juninho, saw him walking around, and then ran through and saw Sasha Kljestan was coming through there. Remember, Sasha Kljestan out of contract with the LA Galaxy right now. They're still discussing things with him. He has a house in Southern California. I would imagine that he's sort of looking at that and saying, hey, I'm probably not going much. I think I was talking to Panda, who was down in Mexico still, actually. I think he's flying back tomorrow. But I was talking to Panda about this and said, if I'm the LA Galaxy, there's a rule that says that you can't have a coaching compensation to a player be more than 50% of the total compensation. So you could take somebody like Sasha Kljestan and pay him $175,000 to $200,000 as a player, and then pay him $150,000 as a coach, and now all of a sudden he's making $350,000, and you are getting both of those things from him. It's not a BS things. So it's super important. I think that they retain somebody like Sasha Kljestan, but also put him in a position to coach. It was funny. Some of the academy kids walked by him, and they were all like, "Oh, hi." Like sort of, the reverence to Sasha. It was sort of like, "Oh, there's Sasha Kljestan," the whole deal. And he's like, "Hey boys, how's it going?" Whole deal. It was just a fun little interaction. But anyway, Sasha was there. I saw him and was just checking out the stadium. The stadium's still there, by the way. People still rolling in and out, and lots of guys going on vacation, lots of guys coming back. So we're still sort of waiting for the next quote unquote press conference. And I was talking with LA Galaxy PR. We think that's coming. Greg Vanny's going to want to talk. Chris Klein's going to want to talk. From the reporter side of things, that's who we need to talk to as well to sort of figure out how this is all going. And I imagine that we might very soon understand exactly what the breakdown is in terms of who's doing what job and sort of how they explain that. That's their job. That's their next job. And I think so far the fact that you've heard relatively nothing is. It's just not a great sign of things to come, right? You would expect that the Galaxy want to get out in front of this and sort of say, hey, we want to explain to you how this is going to work and why this is going to work differently than perhaps it has worked before. And we haven't seen that yet. And I think that that's to their detriment. Now, just through the holidays, but I would have expected something this week. You want to get in front of this. You want to start talking about it. We talked about the off-season schedule that's coming up, and there's a lot of things to get through. And so you sort of want to have a press conference now to set the expectations for what's going on. We haven't seen that yet. So I would hope that we see something like that here in the future. in the very soon future, because I think it behooves everybody, Chris Klein, Greg Vanney, everybody to get out in front of this. I mean, we've heard relatively outside of a press release that says, we thank Dennis. It's been crickets. And I don't think that's the way that you want to go into 2022, especially when, if you look at the noisy neighbors, I feel like that this could be a season for the LA Galaxy to once again reassert dominance in the Western, not in Southern California and in the Western Conference, if they put some things together correctly. So that's sort of where we're looking and sort of what I'm expecting to see, because I think they have a lot of explaining to do, because we've seen this happen before, right? We've seen we don't have a general manager, we're splitting tasks between people, and it didn't work. And so you're going to have to explain why it works this time, why it works with Greg Vanney, why it works with Jovan Kirovski, why it works with everybody else in this. And if they can't explain why that's going to work, then I think you should be be asking those questions. So that's sort of what we expect to happen next. Now, let's get to our first rumor, and this is a rumor show. We're going to try to touch on some things. I can tell you some things that I know. There's things that other people are reporting. I expect the LA Galaxy this year to not be as open, perhaps, as they have been in the last couple of years under Dennis, in terms of, sort of acknowledging who they're going after, who they're talking to, who's of interest, that type of thing. So I would imagine you're going to see a lot more speculation coming out, and a lot less confirmation about things that are going on. That's my general impression so far after, X number of weeks without Dennis. It's probably been a week, just without the general manager in charge there. It just feels like before the LA Galaxy were very much a walled off unit, because I feel like they always felt they were under fire for things. And that sort of started to open up a little bit with some mild success, and having Greg Vanney in there and having guys like Dennis DeClosa, it felt like that started to open up a little bit, and they were more honest with what they were doing and how they were going about it. So that way you could, I think it's important to be somewhat honest with the fans whenever you're trying to do this. You're going to get things wrong, and that's not a reason to hide behind, a phone, or hide behind I don't want to talk to the press. Dennis was great at this. Whenever something was wrong, he would get out in front of it and he would talk about it. We all remember his sideline halftime interview where he came up and talked to the guys. I think it was on ESPN or one of the national ones, and talked about it, and then ended up having to fire Guillermo Barros-Schelotto the next day. He wasn't running from that. And so certainly you knew that, that somebody was running the stuff front. And I think the LA Galaxy have to continue to do that. They have to keep stepping forward when it goes. So one of the first rumors that we're hearing right now in The Athletic is reporting that Sebastian Lejet is on the trading block, right? That the LA Galaxy are looking to possibly move Sebastian Lejet. Now, there's reasons for this, and I think I'm sure I'm going to upset some people on here, all right? I'm going to tell you that the LA Galaxy have a bunch of things to consider whenever they think about moving Sebastian Lejet. And those things include the PR hit that they're going to take when they do that. Sebastian Lejet is a beloved member of the LA Galaxy. He has been since he joined. He is a fan favorite. I'm going to say yes, that number has dipped in the last couple of seasons just because of the performances that come out, but we would be stupid to think that the people in this chat room or the people on Twitter or the people on Facebook make up the entirety of the Sebastian Lejet support. It's larger than that, and it's bigger. And so looking at Sebastian Lejet and what he can do, he's going to play a huge part of what the LA Galaxy are trying to do this offseason, whether they decide to keep him or whether they decide to move him. Both of those are huge things to take into consideration, right? Sebastian Lejet is a very talented player. He's a U.S. men's national team player. He's a domestic player. And for whatever reason, he seems lost within the Greg Vanney system. Now, I'll say this as well, that at least at the beginning of the year, he was playing well for Greg Berhalter on the U.S. men's national team. And as this sort of wore away in thing, his form on the LA Galaxy started to go ahead and shrink the same way, or at least affect his U.S. men's national team form as well. So there is a national team call-up. I think the rosters for that are announced tomorrow, so on Friday. We're recording on a Thursday night. But the Friday, I believe those rosters are coming out for the U.S. men's national team and their training and their game at Dignity Health Sports Park. I would expect Sebastian Lejet is on that list because they're going to want to get him in there playing and doing all that stuff and staying sort of, together with the team, and it's going to be a MLS roster. It's Camp Cupcake, whatever, that if you want to call it that, but that's what we're expecting from sort of the Sebastian Lletget side. So he wasn't able to play in Vanny's system, and I don't even think that's true, by the way, and I think a lot of us say that. I think Sebastian Lletget it's not that he doesn't fit, it's that he hasn't figured out what Greg Vanney is trying to get him to do. And we heard a little bit of that from Greg over the year, talking about Sebastian Lletget, especially whenever Seba had a very good game. He talked about him afterward and said, we've asked Sebastian try to default forward and be more offensive. It's the same thing the U.S. men's national team wants him to do as well. So it's not like the goals for Sebastian Lletget are different. And therefore, going somewhere else might work very well for him in terms of how they want to play him. But where's Sebastian Lletget's best position? We've argued about this forever. You look at Lletget and what he's trying to do, and he's probably more of an offensive side of things, but at the same time, he's more of a possession-based player, right? He's a possession-based player in the center of the field. He likes to hold the ball. He likes to distribute, a lot of times sideways, yes, but with the U.S. men's national team, a lot of time he was getting those channel passes. He was able to find and break those lines. So can you incorporate him? And this is something Greg Vanney has to think about. Can Greg Vanney incorporate him into the team, or is it time to change scenery? I guarantee you, if he changes scenery, you're going to have a rejuvenated Sebastian Lletget. I mean, he went through some personal stuff too. Remember, his sister passed away this season as well. I don't think you can underestimate those things. So this is going to be a balancing act. So the Athletic reporting that there are teams both in the Eastern and Western Conference that are interested in him. Duh. There's a bunch of teams that are going to be interested in Sebastian Lletget. The thing to sort of keep in mind if you're the LA Galaxy, at least from my side of things, where I sit there and say, okay, if I'm the Galaxy, who am I going to, who would I look at? I would not put him in your conference. You're not going to trade him to anybody in the Western Conference because he's going to come back to bite you. This is a guy who will absolutely destroy you when you play him. So you want to make sure that you don't play whatever team you're going to play twice in the season. So make sure he's out of conference. And I think there's plenty of Eastern Conference teams who would be interested. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to already say, well, Bruce Arena would probably take him in New England. Duh. Of course he would. Right? Bruce brought him into the league. Bruce would gladly take him, and I think Bruce could get the most out of him. One of the most successful seasons Sebastian Lletget had was his first season with the LA Galaxy in terms of scoring goals and assists and playing mostly a wing role, right? So you look at that and say, okay, an Eastern Conference team is probably the best fit. Where does that slide down, and how much can you get for him? And I think it's important that you also ask Sebastian Lletget where he would like to go. And I think those types of things are important whenever you're trying to think of how this whole thing ends. Does Sebastian Lletget ever come back to the LA Galaxy? Maybe he goes somewhere for 2 years, doesn't play real well. Maybe the Galaxy get him on a discount coming back, that type of thing. His salary certainly is going to be a little bit of an issue. I don't think it's that much of an issue, really. Sebastian Lletget on $923,750 in the guaranteed compensation. The cap number or the base salary on him was about $800,000. He's a TAM player. We know that, targeted allocation money player. So anyway, that's something to keep in mind. The Galaxy trying to shift and trying to get something from, if you move Sebastian Lletget, here's the thing. If you move Sebastian Lletget right now, he technically doesn't even take up a spot on the LA Galaxy starting lineup. He plays in a role, but you have guys who also play his role and probably play it better. And so, unless you create a role for him, unless Vanney creates a role for him in this offense where he's able to be more creative and maybe a little more of a free role, or you stick him out on the wing. But the problem with the wing is you got Grandsir, you got Cabral, right? You start to lose starting spots. And we saw this a bunch of times from Lletget is where does he play and how do you play him? And Vanney either has to figure that out or they have to move him. That's why moving him makes sense. I was talking with Kevin about it. We're like, moving him does make sense. It's like Dan Steres. If you're not going to play Dan Steres and you realize his option was an automatic, not a renewal, but it was an automatic option once he met his performance metrics in 2020, then if you're not going to play him, then you need to move him. So who else? So now, again, talk to Dan. Where does he want to go? How do you want to do that? Or are you confident? Are you confident enough in Nick DePuy to say, okay, Dan Steres, we're going to let you go? That's a big gamble as well. All it takes is one injury, and you're all of a sudden you have Sega Coulibaly as the one guy who can back that stuff up. Or Sega Coulibaly is going to be your starting center back next to Derek Williams, or Derek Williams gets hurt. The bottom line is that there's still a need for a center back. So keep all of that in mind whenever you're looking at this. Is yes, you can let these players go. You're not going to get a like replacement for Sebastian Lletget, and you're going to lose a PR battle on that. Right? Again, I know this chat room. I know people are ready to see him go. I know the Discord. People are ready to see him go. I know Twitter. I know Facebook. You're a vocal minority. You're not a majority. Okay? So keep that in mind as you're going through this. He's not to the level AJ De La Garza was, but you can see the ripple effects still from AJ De La Garza being traded. Okay? Keep that in mind again, how that all goes. So just a really interesting little take on Sebastian Lejet. And I think that they absolutely could find a place for him to go. So you could have seen the last of Sebastian Lejet with the LA Galaxy. And then it's a matter of like, what do you get? Somebody's like, what's the worth on that? I don't know. It's a lot of, general allocation money. It's a lot of targeted allocation money. And they have to pick up the salary. It might be an international slot. It might be an international slot plus, all this other stuff. It's not just an international slot. What I meant was it's an international slot on top of the other things that you're going to get. I made a joke. They said, what is Sebastian Lejet worth? I'm like 2 Becky G's to somebody out there. But, the big thing is he's from the Bay Area. So would he want to go to San Jose? And would you let him go to San Jose? So do you trade with a rival? Usually the answer is no. How much are they going to give you? Are you ready to see Sebastian Lejet in the San Jose Earthquakes uniform playing against you? Quakes versus LA Galaxy, Sebastian Lejet. Again, Eastern Conference for me is a better answer to that. And then you just have to face them in whatever MLS Cup you end up getting to. I think at that point, you do what you got to do. So keep that in mind. Athletic is it was Sam Stejskal from the Athletic, very trustworthy. Sam does a great job. So that's one of the rumors and one of the bigger rumors. And it's the one that's going to shape a lot of things. So if you see that starting to pick up pace, and the LA Galaxy are obviously shopping for something and looking for something. Let's talk about another player who got got released from his option, right? Ilie Sanchez from Sporting Kansas City did not have his option picked up, so he is now able to go and find a new home. This is 31-year-old, in case you didn't know. 31-year-old, born in Barcelona, Ilie Sanchez played for Sporting Kansas City, shows just a truckload of games. He played 30 games in 2021. Starting in 2017, 33 games, 34 games, 32 games, 15 games, 30 games. A lot of people talking about defensive midfielders, right? And he is a defensive midfielder. He plays in the center of the field. There's sort of this discussion, and in my mind, I kind of think it's already done with, and that we don't need to talk about it anymore. But apparently Ravelis, a lot of people see more as an 8 and less of a 6, right? So more of a box-to-box on an 8 and less of a defensive midfielder as a 6. Ilie Sanchez is a 6, right? You could probably get some 8 out of him, but he's mostly a 6, so you could have a defensive midfielder. So Ravelis, is he now going to be an 8? And do you trust him to be an 8? And are the LA Galaxy going to combine, the 6 and the 8 and somehow find a 10 in there as well? Jonathan Dos Santos. This would be a replacement for Jonathan Dos Santos. I believe his salary was around $1 million last year for Ilie Sanchez. He's 31 years old. He was also La Masia with like Jonathan Dos Santos and Victor Vasquez, the famous Barcelona Youth Academy. So there is some common knowledge there within just the organization, and Sporting Kansas City released him. There was at least some speculation that they didn't release him because they didn't want to keep him. It's just that they couldn't afford him. And perhaps the budget of Sporting Kansas City is coming into more play than the salary cap of the league is. This is a chance, and I think you're going to see this from a lot of the quote-unquote smaller market teams. This is a chance for the LA Galaxy to assert some dominance. This is one of the reasons I think that the Galaxy have a really good chance with not a lot of turnover. I think maybe 9, possibly 10 or 11 players being moved out, but that's only a third of the roster instead of, you look at 17 players or something like that, which is closer to 2/3 of the roster, right? With just a third of the roster and not a lot of starters that you're going to get, if you bring in a couple good pieces and you build off of sort of the platform and the foundation that you developed in 2021, 2022 should be a step forward year. We don't know if that's the case yet. Haven't seen the pieces added, right? But at the very least, you're going to want to see something, in these players that they're bringing in to fill needs. And Ilie Sanchez is somebody who would fill a need. 31 years old. And listen, Jonathan Dos Santos was 31, but he was 31 going on 40. He couldn't play it. You look at Ilie Sanchez, he played 30 games this year, right? And he has a history, again, 33 games, 34 games, 32 games, 15 games in 2020 on a 22-game season, 30 games played. 31 is not old. 31 was old for Jonathan Dos Santos. All right? So keep that in mind. And I would happily have 31-year-olds, not the whole roster. And by the way, the LA Galaxy roster right now is like averaging 24. All right, you can afford to have some 31-year-olds. Guess what? You could probably afford to have a 36, 37-year-old in Sasha Kljestan as well. So keep that in mind as we go through these things. And look, is that 31 is not old. If you have a designated player, and I don't think Ilie Sanchez comes in as a DP, but imagine that you can get a defensive midfielder on a TAM contract. You replace that with sort of the Sebastian Lletget money. So it's like for like there, very small increase in cap hit and TAM or general allocation money, right? And then you're able to go ahead and find somebody else to replace Jonathan Dos Santos. And then that is your designated player that you can bring in, whether that's a 10 or whether that's another forward. I imagine the Galaxy are either going to go after a 10 or another forward, but this isn't locked in. I haven't talked to anybody to know that for sure. But the Galaxy already have some ideas, and I think Kevin and I talked about that on Monday. The Galaxy already have some ideas of who they think they're going to go after for this. So Ilie Sanchez, maybe a little bit of a surprise, but also somebody to keep an eye on. Again, Ilie Sanchez is a very good midfielder, has played in this league, understands this league, understands how to play in this league, and I think Greg Vanney would be one of those guys who could go after him and really pick him up. So that's something to pay attention to. Okay. Ilie Sanchez, just throwing up some stats and doing that. 32 games played, 86 minutes, 29 starts for this last season in 2021. A guy who absolutely can still play at this level. Maybe a little bit more on the downslope. Yes, you're not going to get 5 years out of him, but you probably can get 2 really good years from him. That's what the LA Galaxy are probably looking for right now. So it's going to be an interesting sort of thing. Hey, Patrick says we're going to need another center back. Sure, Patrick. I mean, you brought in, 2 and then you signed some more from the academy. So 3 or 4. I mean, you can just keep signing center backs. The LA Galaxy are great at that. I don't know what you get out of that unless you're going to start playing people regularly in the same position. That's my take. We'll see how it goes. LA Native, by the way, says I might give away my tickets if they don't sign a number 10. I get it. And David asks, will Sanchez get the DP spot? No, I don't think so. And just by the numbers, that doesn't make sense to me anyway. So just again, sort of keep that in mind and look at what we're trying to see. Another name that is popping up as well, and we're about 30 minutes in, and I only have a couple more things to talk about, but I know that there will be, at least some discussion on some of this stuff, is going to be Eric Zavaletta. Now, Eric Zavaletta is Greg Vanney's nephew, and the only reason we're mentioning this is that it looks like Zavaletta is out at Toronto, and he was up at Toronto with Greg Vanney. Zavaletta is it's just an interesting... I mean, you don't want to sit there and say, well, the only reason, he's where he's at. Listen, he can play. And certainly he can play and has played. Played for Real Salt. He was at the youth academies, Real Salt Lake and Chivas USA, Columbus Crew in the 2011s in that era. Went off to college for a little bit. Was with the Seattle Sounders in 2013, 2014. Only 5 appearances there. Some loanouts, certainly. And Chivas USA is one of those in 2014 and 17. With 17 appearances in that. Zavaletta is a defender. The only reason I mentioned the name and was at Toronto for 2015 to 2021, but was loaned out in 2016, loaned out in 2019. Playing for the El Salvador national team, by the way, 11 appearances that started in 2021. Eric Zavaletta is a name that will be mentioned a lot around the LA Galaxy. And the reason that it will be is obviously that he's Greg Vanney's nephew. So keep that in mind. Understand that whenever you see Eric Zavaletta mentioned, that is sort of the history behind that, and perhaps one of the reasons that he will be easily linked to the LA Galaxy. I have no information that says that Eric Zavaletta is coming to the LA Galaxy, and nor would I have that information yet. I think if we're going to get to that, it's going to come a little bit down the road. But his name's already been mentioned. you're going to want to remember that name, and it's important to sort of pay attention. Now, one that LA Galaxy outsider, Madame Serrano himself, or herself. I said Madame Serrano, so maybe it's herself. My pronouns aren't perfect a lot of times. I apologize for that. But LA Galaxy outsider was kind enough to send this rumor my way just before I started, which is always nice. Always nice. There's a rumor out there. 22-year-old Victor Felipe Mendez. Again, listen to the position on this, because this is a defensive midfielder. He's 22 years old. Mendez playing for. Let me try to bring up my wonderful what is it? My stats here and everything. But his main position is sort of that defensive midfielder. He can also play in that central midfield spot in Union Española, right? He's Chilean. He's 22 years old, and there at least is one report right now that says that they're thinking about dealing him, that they're thinking about moving him, but it wouldn't be within Chile, that it would be somewhere else. And if that happens, that possibly it could be Argentina, or possibly it could be the LA Galaxy. Okay. So that's something that's there as well. But listen, now we have two defensive midfielder rumors, right? And they could both be wrong, or the LA Galaxy could be going out and looking for a defensive midfielder. So we have to put that into our giant, mixer of things, and says, does that make any sense? And it doesn't, right? Because you have Raveloson. Well, if you're going to move Raveloson to the 8, then you need a 6, right? And Jonathan Dos Santos was more of an 8, even though we wanted them probably to play more as a 6. And Raveloson is maybe more of an 8 than he is a 6. I still think he's mostly a 6. I know people want to argue with me about that. But whenever you let him sit and not make him sort of chase things around and protect that back line, I think the LA Galaxy defense does a lot better than what they have done in previous times. So again, a defensive midfielder, 22 years old, a young kid. All right. Now they were talking about how, well, they're gonna demand at least $2 million for the transfer, and it's sort of like, okay, that sounds like good. That's a good one. All right. I don't think that's a hindrance to the LA Galaxy and what they're trying to do. The 22 years of age is certainly a question mark on whether or not he can play in Major League Soccer. I imagine he can. And so, again, keep these in mind. Try to place these whenever it happens. It takes a while for things to filter down before I can start telling whether or not they are good. But we have very, very little data right now in terms of, Mendez and whether or not he would even be coming. And it's just one report. And until there's more reports, until we can place it, then we can sort of look to that. Ilie Sanchez and that type of thing would probably negate this deal, right? You're not going to go out and get a 22-year-old who costs you $2 million when you could probably get Ilie Sanchez for free, and he comes over and you just have to pay him $800,000, $900,000, which also might mean that you are going to have to move Sebastian Lejet. So watch for that. If the Sanchez move happens, if Ilie Sanchez move happens, then they probably have to move Sebastian Lejet just in order to keep the cap the same. And being we expect that the LA Galaxy were hard up against the cap, you're going to have to like for like swap on these, right? So pay attention to who's going out, who's coming in. If somebody's coming in, who's going out. Now, Jonathan Dos Santos is out, but if they announce Sanchez and he's not a designated player, which we would expect he wouldn't be, then all of a sudden you have your answer that, okay, so there's still a DP spot at play there, and maybe Sebastian Lejet has to move in order to keep that cap space open. So that's where we have. I do have some actual reporting, and I know a lot of times there's a lot of speculation in the rumor shows and just trying to figure out, defenders or anything else that are going on. So the big deal with this is that there seems to be some movement to try and get at least the LA Galaxy Academy or the lower levels, USL, that back a little bit and to take a step back towards what it was before Dennis DeClosa came for it. And I don't really know how to read this yet, and maybe I'm connecting dots that aren't there. As you know, Mike Munoz was the coach of LA Galaxy 2 for a while. And then whenever Dennis came in, they had Juan Carlos Ortega, who took over the director. And eventually Mike was asked to move on, and Mike moved on, and now he's up with Toronto FC. I covered a lot of Galaxy 2 in my earlier days, and so I knew Mike pretty well whenever all this comes in. So it's just one of those things where you're sitting there, okay, how are things going? Well, there was a rumor out there, and I saw it, and it said that perhaps the LA Galaxy might try to bring Mike Munoz back to the LA Galaxy. Now, obviously, Mike is under contract with Toronto, and so I doubt that going and talking to him is going to get you anywhere or know anything. But I have heard from sources that I can confirm at least that the LA Galaxy did at least ask Toronto to talk to Mike Munoz. So whether or not Mike Munoz is coming back and what position and where it might be, I don't know. But the bottom line is that perhaps the LA Galaxy are looking to bring some of the people back that whenever Dennis was here that they lost. I don't know how to read that. I think Mike is a great coach, and I've always really enjoyed talking to him. I think he's very knowledgeable, understands, sort of the motivation for kids and what they're trying to do. So for me, Mike Munoz, top-notch guy. I've always gotten along really well with him. So him coming back. But at the same time, you had a guy who moved on because of a general manager. Now all of a sudden that general manager leaves, and we've obviously talked about that it probably wasn't under the best of circumstances that he left. And now you're trying to bring that back, and I don't know what to make of that, but I want to give it to you, and at least you can start thinking about perhaps what you would make of that. Like I said, for me, it asks questions. It's like, you shouldn't probably be going backwards on this, but at the same time, are you trying to undo things that Dennis did because you thought that he didn't do them right? Now I'm one and have been pro Dennis in terms of what he did with the Academy and LA Galaxy 2 and what Junior Gonzalez has done with LA Galaxy 2 and what Juan Carlos Ortega did as the director of the LA Galaxy Academy, and how I think that those guys really work together, and that's the legacy of Dennis DeClosa is that Academy. So it's one of those to keep an eye on and sort of see how this goes, but it seems at least the LA Galaxy have asked for permission from Toronto to talk to Mike Munoz. We'll see where that goes. Maybe he's going to come in as an assistant coach. Maybe somebody's leaving. I don't know. But that's something to keep an eye on as we sort of move forward and talk about that as well. Now, the big news everybody wanted, and the big news that everything has been hitting my timeline. And by the way, Erica Avalos says, didn't most of the players that he coached leave overseas for free? And yes, that is obviously one of the big things that Dennis DeClosa sort of turned around, but that was also without, I consider, very good steerage from the director of academies and the general managers and all the things that you were supposed to be doing to already nurture those relationships. I'm sure they got along great with Mike, and Mike was asked to do something. If that's the case, then trying to get them to the next level isn't, all on Mike Munoz and what he did. So anyway, it's a good question and something we should watch. But the big news, everything was in my timeline, and obviously people asking the whole deal, is that the Orange County Register reported that Chris Klein listed his house for sale. The exact title is LA Galaxy President Chris Klein lists Corona Del Mar home for $4.6 million. Let's see if I can give you some of the highlights. An ocean view home in Corona Del Mar's upscale Cameo Highlands enclave, owned by Los Angeles Galaxy President Chris Klein, has come on the market. It's up for sale at nearly $4.6 million. The light bright 2,891 square foot residence dating to 1964 and updated has 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, open plan living areas with glass walls. Included is a living room with a fireplace, dining room, and a separate family room. Stainless steel appliances outfit the gourmet kitchen, which features quartz counters, a walk-in pantry, and a breakfast bar. A fireplace warms a separate sitting area in the primary suite, where French doors open to the brick-laid patio with ocean views. There's a walled-in pool and spa in the front yard, and they list the real estate agent, which I'll give you just in case you're interested. Heather Kidder of Arbor Real Estate holds the listing. This is from Sandra Barrera from the Orange County Register on all of that. Okay. So I've obviously seen the speculation. I've seen people talking about it. I laughed. You guys really do give me a chuckle on a regular basis. I would like to point that out. By the way, before I go any further on this too, somebody told me that my hair is all messed up and that the length on it is messed up on the sides and the top, and that's not all I can think about. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. Sometimes it's just left better unsaid. I mean, the thinning hair is one thing. And now, now this is. Anyway, back to Chris Klein's house. There were some people who said we should start a GoFundMe. So that way, you make sure that Chris can definitely move. I, of course, put this into a pretty good perspective, and I think you can understand this. I'm going to tell you a story about Chris Klein as well, because there's lots of people asking questions about this and about how possibly he can afford a $4.6 million house. So, yeah, Chris Klein isn't going anywhere. And I think that's one of the things that you want to understand is that Chris Klein isn't going anywhere. That this is not something that indicates he is moving at all. As a matter of fact, it sounds like perhaps he's just moving down the street. He's not going very far. All right. So he is not going anywhere, at least not because of this. Okay. So as much as you want to hope and wish and all that fun stuff, Chris Klein, not there. Now, the other part about this is that, at least from my understanding, this house was the house that he bought a couple of years ago. He bought this and they, listed it at $3 million. And so he bought it for $3 million. Now he's selling it for $4.6 million. I'm going to tell you a story about Chris Klein. Because I think that people don't understand. People are saying, he was an old MLSer. How did he make this much money? First of all, he was a U.S. men's national team player. He played significant roles on all the teams that he went for, RSL, LA Galaxy, Sporting Kansas City, or the Kansas City Wizards back at the time. So he was a well-compensated player. I also know that whenever I talked to Chris originally, way back in the day, is that he was always super, super interested in financial things. He was a numbers guy. Always sort of has been, and he wanted to help players, if I remember this correctly, and it's this going back a long time, like 14 years. If I remember correctly, Chris always wanted to help players with their sort of financial planning, right? He wanted to be a financial planner, helping these players make sure they made smart decisions with their money. And we know that in MLS, you don't always get a lot of money. And if you make smart decisions with it, then perhaps you can. One of the smart decisions Chris Klein made, and I can tell you just this, is just his real estate holdings and where he was. Let's talk about this story because I think it's a fun story and I still remember it. And I would like everybody to be reminded, Chris Klein is a person has always been extremely nice to me. We've had plenty of talks over the years. He hasn't always been happy with me, and that's fine. I'm sure I've said things that are wrong. I try to be 100% accurate here as much as I can. There's no way I could ever be. But at the same time, I can still understand the frustration that people have. People can be nice people. And I think that's something sometimes we get wrong is people can be nice people and they get it wrong a lot. And I think that if you look at Chris Klein, whenever he was brought in, it was 2013 whenever he originally started with the LA Galaxy. Obviously, they won in 2014. Bruce Arena was still there. Bruce Arena left after 2016, 2017 through 2021 has been an abject disaster for the LA Galaxy. And this is at the helm of Chris Klein. And I don't think you can divorce him from those results. His contract, I believe, was renewed in 2017 or after the 2017 season because it was the worst season in franchise history, and he got a renewal. And his contract was for 5 years and runs through the 2022 season. I think at one time I counted 2023, but it's 2022 season. So at least as we see it now, he is one more time. He is one of those guys that is going to be here. At least his contract is up in 2022, which means all of next year, you should be watching to see if AEG and Dan Beckerman decides that he is worthy of staying, because that would sort of be the indication. This house does not mean anything. But again, back to Chris Klein and his and sort of how I ran into him this one time. So I lots of people know I grew up in Newport Beach. I live in Orange County still, and not too far away from where I grew up. But I used to go walking down in Corona Del Mar, down on the beach by Big Corona. There's a beach down there. And so I would go walking with my dog. And at the time it was my wife, my ex-wife now. But we were walking down there, and so I'm walking, and gorgeous views of the beach and everything, and it's one of my favorite places to go walk and sort of just take in the scenery. And then you walk down this one street that's a very sort of famous street in Corona Del Mar areas, and you walk down, it's a very narrow street, there's trees on both sides of the whole deal, and all the houses are like right up against each other, and they all have sort of ocean views up on the cliffside. They sort of look down into different coves and that type of thing. So I'm walking on that street, just, sweatshirt. I may have actually had an LA Galaxy kit on, funny enough. But anyway, walking, and I walk by, walking by, and there's some dude sitting in his beach chair out in his driveway, just like lounging, relaxing, no big deal, just, having a soda or whatever. I don't remember what it was, but just walking by, and I look over and I'm like, this is probably 2009. Yeah, it was probably 2009. So I look over and it's Chris Klein. And I'm walking, I'm like, oh my God. And I looked at my ex-wife and I'm like, I think that was Chris Klein. And she's like, who? Because she had no idea. Not her fault. And so I sort of was like, oh, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll look back. I'm like, I couldn't have been. And so I looked over again. I'm like, no, that's Chris Klein. I'm going to go say something. So I went over and I'm like, are you Chris Klein? And this is before I had even I think I just started this podcast, maybe. So you're talking again, 2009. So anyway, I went up, I go, are you Chris Klein? And he's like, yeah, I'm Chris Klein. I was like, oh, hey, I'm Josh. I go to Galaxy games, the whole deal. I just wanted to say hi. It's the whole deal. So it was funny because as I started to get more well-known, Chris knew that I knew where he lived, the whole deal. And so eventually he's like, oh no, yeah, I sold that house and we bought somewhere else. This is what Chris has done over the years is he's done a good job. Again, if you buy something for $3 million and now you can sell it for $4.6 million, well then, your realized gain there is $1.6 million. If you're able to do that over a period of time, and again, we're talking 14 years and 3 houses, then you can do that. And so Chris as a player was paid, a reasonable amount for that time. And where he was buying down there was really good real estate pickup. So again, it's one of those things. That's where it is. Yes, I'm sure, Kevin actually and I were arguing about how much we think Chris Klein actually makes. And I was of the opinion that I don't think it's as much as people think it is, but I don't know. And it was sort of, Chris goes, well, you can't be the boss of somebody and then have somebody else make a ton of money. And I said, really? Because it happens all the time in sports where a coach will make more money than a GM. And so that's one of those things to sort of watch whenever this happens. We don't know what that is. That being said, Chris has always been smart with his money, and so it doesn't surprise me that he's in a place, by the way, that my parents have always been like, oh, that would be our dream. Actually, the Cameo Shores part would be their dream. They don't live down there, but Cameo Highlands and Cameo Shores, or there's Pacific Coast Highway splits them in between, and the shores are closer to the ocean, and the Highlands are more, up on the higher land. What do you know, up on the side, but obviously all ocean views. So having said all of this, the basic thing is that no, this doesn't mean Chris Klein is leaving. It's not. It's not even an indication that he is. It's probably just that he's moving to a different place. Maybe he's downsizing because he has kids. Maybe kids are going off to college, that type of thing. So yeah, that's where you're looking at. And it's important to say that Chris Klein will stay in his position until Dan Beckerman or AEG says that he's not going to. So it's again, you want to place blame on somebody, and maybe your argument is that Chris Klein should step down. I'm not saying that's a wrong argument. Certainly, I just told you what his results have been over the last couple of years. But if he doesn't want to step down, then it's up to AEG to make a move, and AEG hasn't made a move. You went from Tim Ljetget, who was intimately involved in bringing David Beckham to the LA Galaxy, to pushing the LA Galaxy to new heights, to getting Bruce Arena, to doing all these things that he thought was the best interest of the LA Galaxy. And you went to Dan Beckerman, and no offense between the two, but Tim Ljetget is like this light in the dark, and he is a conversation guy, and he wants to talk to you, and he wants to shake your hand, he wants to be in front of you, he wants to tell you what he's thinking, he wants to tell you what he's doing. And Dan Beckerman is the exact opposite of that, which is, please don't talk about me, please don't mention me, I'm here, I'm watching numbers, and that's what I do. And unfortunately, as president of AEG, there aren't very many people who would fire him as well. And you'd have to look at Uncle Phil, who would be one of those people. And remember, Phil ran off Tim Ljetget. So these are the things you have to go. Now, Uncle Phil Anschutz has been more and more of and he's always been mysterious in terms of he doesn't do press, he doesn't talk to people, he doesn't do that thing. He's a guy with a ton of money, and he just does whatever he wants to do, and he doesn't have to talk to anybody if he doesn't want to. But I would say that it feels more and more like he is hands-off with things at AEG, and it feels that means he's more and more hands-off, with things for the LA Galaxy. He's not getting any younger. He absolutely saved this league, and everybody should tip their hats to him, but eventually there's going to become a time and come to a reckoning when somebody has to make a real decision. And so far, Dan Beckerman and Chris Klein feel like they do not make real decisions, right? They've gone through how many GMs, how many coaches in 2017. So that's the situation that you're in. But his house being for sale doesn't mean anything. All right. And by the way, the only reason I always find it weird to talk about people's houses and like where they live and that type of thing. And the only reason I would go through any sort of details because it's in the OC register. It's like somebody had to talk about that in order to do it. And you're clearly, somebody will find that interesting and might go and have a look at his house and understand that the president of the LA Galaxy lived here. I doubt that's a thing, right? It would be different if like you were the president of, the LA Kings, or you're president of the Dodgers, and then, I'm living in the president of the Dodgers house now. That would be kind of cool. But this kind of publicity comes for these houses. And I'll tell you that $4.6 million in Cameo Highlands doesn't even seem like it's like the big house, and it's less than 3,000 square feet. I guarantee you. It's one of those things. So that's the thing. I mean, RO in the chat room says, does Uncle Phil approve of where the Galaxy are? What are his thoughts? We need to interview him. Hey, let's do it. I'm in. You tell me. When is it coming? How's it going? E-Super says, Anschutz needs to sell the team. That's something that we have talked about, though, on this show, is selling the team. Eventually, it comes to the point where, what are you going to do if you're the LA Galaxy? You're just going to be held by AEG? Is somebody at AEG going to have the foresight to invest into the LA Galaxy the way that they probably deserve to be invested in a league that has changed? So you look at all these things, and those are the questions now that come out. Again, I am telling you right now, it feels very much like LAFC are going to pull back in terms of what they are doing. And that opens up a window for the LA Galaxy, and it's not going to be a forever window. All right, this pandemic has hurt teams. It hurt AEG. You can guarantee it did, but AEG has a ton of cash. It shouldn't worry them. So the LA Galaxy can absolutely go out there and do the things that they need to do and spend the money in the right positions to be league dominant over the next 3 to 4 years. I don't think this team needs that many changes. I know lots of people do. I disagree with that. I think the more you change things in soccer, the less understanding you usually have. And I know a bunch of you are used to seeing, these big teams, Manchester City or, Liverpool, and how they switch out teams and switch out players and that type of thing. There's actually a lot of stability in those squads. And they go out and they get 1 or 2 players that they sort of need to switch out in order to keep advancing. They find a weakness that they want to improve on, and they do it. But there's a lot of stability in those because people want to be there. And there used to be a lot of stability with the LA Galaxy up to a certain point. We always used to say Bruce is building a team to win now, and in Major League Soccer, you have to build a team to win now. So keep that in mind. This is the time, and this is the opportunity the LA Galaxy have, and it's right now. And they built a base in 2021, and that base got them enough points to get into the playoffs. A tiebreaker didn't. The team that beat them in that tiebreaker that had the same number of points to them is in the Western Conference Final right now. The team that is going up against them, the LA Galaxy played against very well throughout the year. You can't tell me the LA Galaxy were not competitive against Portland, and the only time that they really got smacked was whenever Williams got the red card. Otherwise, they played Portland very well. Portland's in the Western Conference Final. All right. So, I mean, I think there's less separation now between teams 1 and 12 or 13 or 14 in the Western Conference than there ever has. The smallest separation. I do not think there are very many good teams in the Western Conference, but overall their quality is better than the Eastern Conference. All right, so it is going to be scratching and clawing and doing everything you possibly can to get points. And the LA Galaxy are going to have to lean on the ability of Greg Vanney to plug the holes and to build on what he did last year. So this is their chance. This is their chance where they have the money and other teams might not have the money to go out and do things they need to do. And the Galaxy need to take advantage of that and build for the future of what's coming. Okay? So that's where the LA Galaxy are at. I cannot impress upon you the position the Galaxy are in right now and how much of a chance it is for them to jump ahead in this schedule. Like I really feel like they are a Western Conference contender, top 3 team next year if they get the pieces that they need. And one of them is a number 10. You got to get another goal scorer. You have to see Kevin Cabral continue to get better, right? So he needs to be, I said it like an 8 and 10, an 8 goals, 10 assists guy in 2022. I would love for that to be 10 and 12, right? Give me 22 total goals plus assists, and Kevin Cabral is absolutely everything that you paid for. And I think that he's getting in positions and that he's at those abilities, he's just not hitting it. So, again, I hope that it is just the comfort level that's being away from home. It's all those things, because he could be a difference maker in 2022. You're looking at the guys, Joveljic and his development, Chicharito, being able to find guys who put the ball in the back of the net. This is what Greg Vanney has to do, and they have to keep the ball out of the back of the net on the other side. Improving the midfield will help that. All right? Improving that will help that. All right? So that's what we got. That's where we're at with the LA Galaxy. That's where we're at with the rumors. Not a lot of stuff, not a lot of concrete things. You can all go tell your friends that Chris Klein is not, his selling his house is not a reason for celebration if they wanted Chris Klein out. So keep all that in mind. The Galaxy, again, I was talking to the Galaxy on Tuesday, and I'm hoping that we get a press conference here soon, because I think there needs to be a press conference. So that's something that needs to happen, and you certainly want to find out exactly whose job it is to do what and how this is different from last time. All right? So that's where you're at. That's where we're all at. I hope everybody's having a good time. We all get to have a good weekend. It was my son's second birthday today, so that's another reason why I'm a little scatterbrained. At least I got another good story for you in there. Another Josh runs into Galaxy players, somewhere story. I do have another one. Oh, Christian says, is Chicha getting traded? No. Okay, next. I know where that came from, and I do not trust that even a little bit. And I think there's no reason for them to get rid of Javier Hernandez, especially the season that he had. Yes, I think you have to be very careful with him. We've talked about this. 2,000 to 2,400 minutes is sort of my cap for what he is able to do next season. So you better have people who can back that up. You better have people who can come in. So he is staying. He's not going anywhere. And I think that you're going to see that. So that's where we're at. All right. His contract up next year, and then he has an option after that. The LA Galaxy have an option on that for him as well. I don't know. Again, it would really depend on what you're sort of seeing. I would imagine they decline the option regardless and renegotiate wherever it goes. So yeah, that's where we're at. Little dude's second birthday. That's fun. I remember this time last year, I was certainly not recording, or 2 years ago, I was certainly not recording a podcast. A nice little break. Thanks for the LA Galaxy for let's see, they made the playoffs that year in 2019. See, they tried to keep me busy during that time, and it didn't work. So that's where we're at. That's where the LA Galaxy are. Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals coming up. That's something to watch if you're interested in that. The games have been exciting, at least. I am on Team Chaos now. I voted for the team that cheated with a handball in order to get into the playoffs to be in the MLS Cup, and for that game to take place on a baseball stadium at Yankee Stadium. So Team Chaos for me. New York City versus RSL is my dream final for this year, and I really, really, really hope it happens. That's just me. So a lot of fun. That's it. That's all I can do. That's all we got. We are done for tonight. I appreciate everybody for hanging out with me. It's another solo show. We'll get some people back in the fold here as everybody sort of settles down. And then also, I actually have to see if I have a co-host on. I actually have to plan for something, and instead, I just scrambled up here from having cake, and just jotted down some notes and did some stuff so I could do it. So if this was a real show with somebody else joining me, I would have had to do a lot more work. So that's where we're at. Christmas decorations are up, just in case, you see. And so hopefully everybody enjoys the holiday season. Happy Hanukkah to all my friends. So that's where we're at. We will be back on Monday night. Kevin will be back in, and we'll certainly have everybody rocking and rolling. All right. All right, that's it. I'll hit the button, and then I'll tell you where you can find you, and then we'll see everybody back on Monday. Again, our show schedule right now is up on cornerofthegalaxy.com. If you click the live show, you can sort of see when we're going to have shows, when we're not going to have shows, and I'll keep you updated. We're almost at show 900. I think we're 2 or 3 away, so that's where we're at. All right? All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter, at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast, head on over, cornerofthegalaxy.com. That's where you can find all of our shows, our articles, any of the news that we think is interesting. Cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can find it right there. All right. That does it. Everybody have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Josh Guesman, the Pato himself. You've been listening. You've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.